Will this Spyker C8 on Bring a Trailer bring more money than it did last time it was listed on BAT in 2021 when it failed to sell? Let's find out. Bit Nerds is your daily YouTube card game show, where we predict the online auction results of the most interesting cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Haggerty Marketplace, and more. It's just like the Price is Right game show. Play along and see if you can beat the nerds.
A 2006 Spyker C8 Spyder that is currently also on Bring a Trailer, offered out of North Bergen, New Jersey. Our car is showing just 3,600 original miles, and this car is a premium listing, and it's an alumni, having previously been listed on BAT way back in December of 2021, where the bidding stopped at $272,000 on 31 bids, and it failed to sell at that $272,000 number back in 2021. Our car had 3,500 miles at the time. So in roughly 2.25 years, JP, they've only put another 100 miles on the car, which means they've just been paying to store the damn thing. And now they're bringing it back to market. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say the market was better back then, bro. I think you should have taken the 272 when the 272 itself was worth more and the market was stronger. I think this is a, when being alumni on the platform is your own best comp and the market is softer, what on earth are you thinking? I don't think this car is going to do any better this time around. And so I think this guy's kind of painted himself into a corner. He's in a tough position. Look, these cars are beautiful. They're exotic without having that sort of carbon Ford GT supercar crypto bro cachet. This, I think, is a car that appeals to somebody that has a little bit of taste. Pretentiously so, sure. This looks like all the Art Deco furniture they sell at a Restoration Hardware with the, propeller style wheels and, all the aeronautical things that are throughout the car. But it sure looks like a hell of a fun roadster to drive. And it's a car I would have a blast in, with a manual transmission and a 4.2 liter V8 Audi normally aspirated motor, limited slip differential, AP racing calipers, Coney F1 shocks. Mental, could you not do a hot lap in this car with your hair on fire? This would be amazing. So I really like this car. I think it's very cool. But they have just had a very strange relationship with their own secondary market. These cars have not. When they first came out, they were so exotic and so unusual and so bespoke. I thought they were going to do really, really well in the secondary market. They just historically have not. And so I think this one, the seller here is going to struggle. I think he should have taken the 272, a couple of years back, and I don't think he's going to make it again this time around. So, John, we covered one of these last year. I don't remember if that car sold. It was definitely a different one because it wasn't this color. But I offer you, again, a Spyker C8 Spyder. A hell of a lot of fun. Not something I'd ever endeavor to own. Where would you even go get it serviced? But, what's the problem for these cars? How come they don't do better? I mean, they certainly have the eyeball, don't they? Would you not agree with that?
I don't know. I mean, at 270, that's pretty good for 2006. I mean, exotic. I mean, seriously, like what's a Lamborghini of that era? The R8 wasn't out just yet, but I mean, Lamborghini, what would that be? The Gallardo or whatever. Yeah, those aren't totally even worth, those are probably the same price at the time. And those are, 80, 90 grand or something like that. A manual one might bring $1.50. Look, this car is just like the Audi, or not the Audi, I'm sorry, but the Alpha that we talked about before. 12/3/21 is when it was bid to 272. That was before the spike in prices, well before the spike in prices. So by the mid 22s, this car was probably well over 300 grand. So this this car is definitely going to come back down, but I mean, the fact that it's a couple days to go, 3 days to go, and it's already at 225, I think it's looking pretty good to make it back to at least where it was before. So call it a correction. You know, the 911s, like the 911 that we were just talking about, the 911s seem to be the most insulated. We talk about their, you know, being soft compared to a year or a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. But there's definitely more insulated than something like this. The big question is how much. We're not at numbers yet, but Wade, what do you think of this car?
You know, this is a car that I long forgot about after it was released when I was a youngin'. It came out and it was a very strange car at the time. It was a concept car that sort of became reality, and they only ever made about 300 of them. And at the time, this was a wild car. Now it's not so much a car as it is like a work of art, especially from the inside, all the propeller steering wheel thing and the exposed shift bits and all of the interior fit and fixtures that they put on this car. But the thing is this car really didn't get any appreciation because it was so obscure and they made so few of them, and it wasn't really anything specifically for a track or specifically a supercar. It was just kind of like this odd thing. And it's particularly odd that a person would get $270,000 seemingly for a car that very few people know of or would be interested in and not take it at the time. I think that's a pretty big mistake. These cars are having their time in the sun, but it's not like this is going to be $1 million car. It just has no like provenance, no history, no like fanfare. It's just very obscure. And I can't imagine what they're thinking other than hopefully getting the exact same amount of money as last time, or else they're going to be in trouble. And I'll say one other thing on this car in particular, 6,500 miles or whatever it is like kind of high for this car because most of them have like less than 1,000 miles. And those are the ones that exchange hands for 300,000 or more.
So wait, I don't mean to confuse you, but this car only has 3,600 miles.
Oh, 3,000. Yeah, it's still weirdly high, I guess. I've seen some Spykers with under 1,000 miles, under 500 miles that I think are a little bit more desirable. But if this car has been like maintained and driven, that might be a plus. I don't know.
I mean, it's got an Audi engine. What's the transmission? Is it an Audi transmission or?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Is it all-wheel drive?
No.
It's not, right? No, okay, so it's just rear-wheel drive. So what transmission would they use if they?
Probably the same 6-speed. I bet you it's like a Getrag, another German-sourced. You know, could be a ZF.
Wouldn't all the Audi transmissions be all-wheel drive setups? No, from there. Okay, well there you go.
Because the R8 was available as a rear-wheel drive.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. But it wasn't out for another couple of years after that, did they?
Now, does it say in the ad that this one is Audi powered? Because most of them were BMW powered. Okay, or no, they were sourcing engines from different places.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing at the end of. Oh, go ahead, Deeb.
I was just gonna say I've never seen a BMW powered one. All the ones I've looked at, mental, have been the 4.2 liter V8.
I know they went through a bunch of different ownership. I mean, Saab owned them for a nanosecond before Saab went out of business, but I don't think they were actually making any cars at the time that they had any kind of ownership stake in the car or in the brand. And then some Indian company bought them, and then that was that, wasn't it? The end of Spyker. Anyone know? Someone in the comments will know. All right, what do we think this thing's going to bring, Deeb?
All right, JP, I'm just kind of glancing around here and shopping. So one thing to note, the MSRP on this car back in 2006, because they made this car for like 18 years. I'm sure they would build one after they took a hefty deposit from a potential buyer and build it with his money. I don't think Spyker was ever, financially sound. And like you said, they probably changed hands a few times. But the MSRP in 2006 was $257,000. And this car easily made $272,000, and the guy didn't take the money on 31 bids. It's at $225,000 with 3 days to go. But this time around, at this moment, the car is only sitting on 6 bids. Not a lot of action, but there's still 48 hours to go before this car closes. I'm going to bite the bullet. Where I said I didn't think it would make what it made last time, I actually think it will. The median price for these cars at the moment is around $330,000. I'm going to say that I actually think this car is going to get to $300,000. I'm going to go $308 for the C8, $308,000 where I think it will sell. If it gets to that number, I think if it breaks 300, I think the guy takes the money this time.
Yeah.
So John, where are you at?
I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. Say 272. I'll say it gets up to where it was bid up last time, and then maybe stalls out. So that's my number. What do you think, Wade?
Well, yeah, more I think about it, the more I kind of wonder, like, there's a little bit of a premium on these right now, but that tainted previous price, I think, gets a lot of people feeling some type of way. I'm going to go 278,800 for the C8 Spyker. And if he doesn't take it this time, I mean, there's no one else to sell it to.
The fact that it only made it to X number back then, I mean, I get that factoring in, there's not a lot of comps for one of these. Okay, fine. But I get that number being a problem if it were 3 months ago or 6 months ago. We've talked about that many times where we've, had a second bite of the apple for certain cars and they've done really well the second time around. Some not so much, right? But I think generally it's a bad idea to try to sell your car again very soon after you failed to sell. But this was years ago. I know that to an old guy like me and Deeb, 2021 feels like yesterday, but for a young guy like you, doesn't 2021 feel like that was a while ago?
I mean, yes and no. I don't know. I think any information on a car, however many years ago it was, is some information, right? And it's something to kind of price anchor off of. And I think it probably, no matter how special the car, unique it is, or the price, I think it still probably sways some people.
Well, what if it was 2018? You'd be like, well, it only got to 200, so it probably won't get more than that.
I totally see. I totally see your point. Yeah, I think for some people there's probably a checkpoint somewhere along the way where.
Well, I guess the question is, what's the threshold? Like, is it like a year, like 2 years, 5 years?
Pre-COVID to post-COVID, I think is a decent marker, and I just think this car is like so niche and so like. This is the kind of car that somebody buys when they already have 24 other supercars, and they're like, "Oh, this one is totally different and totally unique." I don't know that there's that many buyers for this car. So those are my thoughts, and that's why I'm hesitant on a over 300.
When was post-COVID, by the way? What are we calling the cutoff on that?
Depends on who you ask.
I see a bunch of people wearing masks coming in here. Mental, what's your number? Yeah,
John, it started yesterday.
Yeah. It's restarted.
So the whole company goes back to like a Dutch airplane manufacturer from the 1800s, which is all the propeller stuff on there.
That's why Saab wanted them.
And probably. But Wade said it. It's not necessarily a car as much as it's art. And I hate to jump on this whole thing because I make fun of you guys when you do it. But in this economy, people aren't investing in art. I say 240, it's not going to sell.
They're investing in Bitcoin. It's on a tear. I mean, we're at 50 something grand, 52 grand or something like that. You got to think a bunch of people are going to be cashing out and buying stuff again.
Yeah, but they're not going to buy art, especially art that doesn't return on an investment.
I mean, really? I mean, crypto bros, aren't they? Isn't that their whole MO is to buy stuff that
not real art, NFT art, and other stuff that doesn't exist.
So if this car were digital,
if this was a picture of the car, it'd be 400 grand at least.
Okay, and there was a monkey in it or something like that, right? Wow. What do you guys think this C8 Spyker will bring? Let us know in the comments below. Where's the nerd herd at on this thing?
They are all in the 240, 290 range. We got Gerds in at 260, Buddha 250. Jim actually had the entire history on it. He dug up one about Doug DeMuro did a review on one that went for $300K after having 700,000 views, and his point being that only brought the price up like $25K over what this one failed to sell for. So I think everyone's in the 240 to 270 range.
All right. Well,
PCAR Market sold one with 5,000 miles in 2022.
It was fake. It was made in China.
2022 for $305,000. And so that's when kind of prices were silly. This car has a few less miles, but anyway, whatever.
Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy.
1989 linen gray metallic G50 cab.
Is that gonna be for sale?
It is gonna be for sale. The car only has 65,000 miles on it.
Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if bid nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair.
Several days later.
I picked this 2006 Spyker C8 Spyder with 3,600 miles, also on Bring a Trailer out of North Bergen, New Jersey. Our car was a BAT alumnus where it had ran in December of 2021. At that time, it was bid to $272,000 where it failed to sell on, as I scroll, 31 bids. So it got the action. At that time, it only had 3,500 miles. Here we are almost 3 years later. Now the car is showing 3,600 miles. And we wondered for a niche supercar in arguably really good condition with fairly low miles, would the market be stronger or weaker? I went all in on this car. I just thought it's too cool, too rare. And I think there was also, the car was, I think, at like 240 or 250 when we were covering it. So I said $308,000. JP, you gave us the same number as what it ran to in 21, $272,000. Wade parked right above you at $278,800, and Mental took the under, saying it would go no further at $240,000. Very interesting result, JP. Our car sold for $330,000 on just 25 bids. I was the high man, so I got that one. But I mean, dude, $22,000 over my bid. That's a lot of money for a Spyker. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to hop in there and just say, look, one of the things that we were discussing on the last episode was whether or not a comp from basically the beginning or pre-pandemic is a comp that makes any sense. And my position was, no, man, you can't use a comp from, pre-COVID. Though that was a different era. That may as well have been 100 years ago. But maybe I've watched too many YouTube videos over the last couple of months or even weeks, and I'm watching all these YouTubers saying that the sky is falling. So using the old comp and saying it's going to make that much is really saying that it's going to bring less, because the same amount of money pre-COVID is less money now when you factor in inflation. So I really should have been more aggressive if my position is that the sky isn't falling on enthusiast cars. Wade, what do you think?
Yeah, I got had on this one because I was the one who said, it's not just a comp. It was this car that sold or didn't sell. It didn't sell.
272 2.5 years ago.
I'm of the opinion that can sort of taint a car. Now, JP, I think to your point, enough time probably has passed. And Michael Deeb, you brought up on the last show that actual comps for this car were over $300,000. So, I think it is a lot of money for this particular example. I mentioned in the last show, I think this is like a weirdly higher than usual mileage on this car. A lot of them have less than 1,000 miles. They sit in people's garages as not even cars, as art pieces. It's such an obscure car, and they made only a few hundred of them over the years. But this is a really strong result for this car. And I wonder if this might inspire some more people to say, hey, 330 in the middle of February after a did not sell 2 years prior. I wonder if throughout the year this will be a $350,000 or $400,000 car, because it's like so obscure and so interesting, and it might just be that sort of something that if you have everything else, this is maybe the one you don't have yet.
Interesting.
Yuri, you don't have a car newer than 1980. This is kind of considered an enthusiast classic car. Is this something you would drive daily?
I don't know much about these cars, but no, it isn't. And the other thing I would say, though, is the quality, again, market wide, there are fluctuations, but the quality always wins. So that's the answer I would have had to the last listing and to this one too, is if you took care of your car, if you represent it well, if it looks good, if you can answer the questions, and frankly, again, maybe if the sky is falling, maybe the sky is falling on 51% of the listings, but the rest of them and the good ones, it's not. So I think the people that jumped in that didn't know what they were doing, they can be the ones that are yelling that, and it's real to them. But everybody else that this is something that they do honestly and they know what they're talking about, that's not the case.
Look at that interior. That's a classy interior. I can see you hanging out.
I'm gonna out Yuri. Yuri wouldn't drive this car, JP, because he's a cabriophobe. He likes his cars. He likes his cars with a roof. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, hold on a second. I mean, that's a fair thing, but like, what if it's a car that doesn't ever have a roof? Like, this car doesn't. They didn't make a coupe version of this. They're all have tops.
I couldn't see what we were looking at, so I didn't even know what we were. All I knew was the Spyker.
Maybe that's the way we should do the show from now on. We don't actually look at the cars or know what the heck they are.
Sounds like we do it that way.
It sure does. That's for sure. All right. What do you guys think of the results of this Spyker C8? Is that all the money, or is this car going to bring even more money this spring? I think that's possible. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the next quarter as the crypto bros start cashing out a little bit, and some of that excess liquidity that's floating around, will it find its way into collector cars? That's the big question. Hey guys, thanks for watching this clip of the Bid Nerds podcast. Play along with us live every Sunday and Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. on YouTube, and see if your bids stack up to the rest of the nerd herd in the chat live. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Nerd! Get those words!